My name is Nathan Stanford Sr., and if you've read the title, you're coming here to learn HTML, and this is built for those who know absolutely nothing. I prefer you know how to turn your computer on, how to find things on your computer, how to browse the internet. But most nowadays, everybody, including our kids, know how to do that. So if you don't know how to turn your computer on, then you're not seeing this. If you don't know how to browse the web, you're probably not on YouTube. But if you're on the TV and you're seeing this, you can watch. But understand, to be able to do beginner HTML, you're going to need a computer. And I'm going to be using a Windows computer, so you may have to translate if you're using a Mac or some other kind of computer. So let's start with the basics. First thing that we're going to talk about is what is HTML. So what I recommend you do is learn how to find answers. Obviously, we've all searched for things, so what is HTML? So if we go, what is HTML? We see here, there's these different sites. There's the AI giving us information, but the one I recommend you go to start learning HTML basics is to go to W3 Schools. So we're going to go to the Introduction to HTML. So what is HTML? What does it actually stand for? Hypertext Markup Language. So when you start to understand what does that mean, I'm not going to go through all of that because it used to be there was markup set up years ago. There would be certain ways you would lay out a page for printing in a newspaper, and so you would get it worked up and you would put it here, put it there, and you would define what section is going to be this page and what section is going to be that page and all that kind of stuff. So some of the language you get came from other areas before you got to HTML. But W3 Schools is good because they're the ones that when there's new stuff, you're going to find the answer to the new stuff, the new HTML. And as you can see over on the left, there's all kind of HTML stuff here. So you probably want to come here and try to figure out exactly what all these things are. And normally, when I'm working, I would tell you how to do other things. But we're going to start probably the way a lot of us did before we knew anything about what to do. So we're going to say, we're going to get an open notepad. Find some kind of text editor. I know there's better editors, and we're going to move to a better editor. But the first editor I want you to try will give you almost no help. It'll just be you, the computer, working on something. So what we're going to do now is we're going to copy this over here. We're going to actually copy this. Before we actually do anything with the copy, we're going to hit try it yourself. So now if you look here, you can see that we can change this information by typing in here. This page title here, when you've got the page by itself, will show up here in this text. So we don't need to change that because on this page, you're getting the example over here and the title wouldn't change up there. So let's just make a small change and let's just say my HTML, my title. And then we'll come down here and we'll say, okay, I want to get rid of this and say, I am working toward learning how to create web pages. The cool thing is if you hit run, you'll see it show up over here. So if I hit run, now it says HTML my title, so now what are these tags? This is called H1 or a heading 1. We'll go back and look at that in just a minute. This one here is called a P tag. But before you do that, you have to first let the computer know this is an HTML document I'm trying to send to you. So treat it as an HTML document. Here is the beginning of an HTML tag. The difference between that tag and this tag is this one has a slash in the front of the text, meaning it is the ending. So you really shouldn't be putting any HTML down here. Right now, the way HTML works and the way browsers work, they're smart enough that if you make a mistake and you accidentally do something like this, it will still work. But you should not be putting anything below the body or the HTML. So here we're trying to create the header, and we want to create the title of the page. So we're going to say HTML my first page. So I'm going to build my first, I guess I should say my first web page. We can't see it yet, but we will fix that in a minute. So what you do is, notice I went 2 spaces over. Why did I do that? So that I could see between this head and this head, I could see it more clearly and cleanly. Then down here, I can hit space twice. The computer ignores the extra spaces, but as a human, when we're looking at this, it helps. And this is the beginning of a P tag, which is a paragraph. So another thing I will do sometimes is I will even space over for all of this over. But I'm not going to this time because we're not going to have very much in here. So let's go back and look at an H1 tag and a P tag for a second. So if we go back here and we look for the basic and you scroll down, it shows here, here's what an H1 tag is. So when you click on this run, what do you think? Well, up here, let's look at the HTML document. Here it talks about the declaring of the document type is going to be HTML. There is other HTML, when they make changes to HTML and they add new features, new tags, new things that you can do, they'll come up with a new doc type at some point. If they do, then you want to change this to match whatever the new doc type is. So down here we're doing HTML. HTML 1, 2, 3. So what do you think is going to be the difference between a header 1, a header 2, and a header 3? And just so you know, there's more than 3 headers. I believe it all goes up to 6. So if I hit it, as you can see, 1 through 6. Only difference is the size of the font. So this text is just a bigger when it's 1. So if you're writing an article and you're wanting to display it on the web, you may have first the title, which would be an H1, meaning it's the most important. The second title would maybe be a subheading, be the heading of 2. And then inside of that subheading, you may have some paragraphs that you want to say. I've got a subheading over this small paragraph. I want it to be that. You can have all the way up to 6 headings. So that is the beginning of that part of HTML. So let's go back here and look. What you want to do is scroll through all of these, maybe even read some of these if you're that much of a beginner. It's really important that you kind of read these and get an idea what's going on. And it explains here that when you have tags, you're going to have the tag name and then an ending tag name. There's a few exceptions, but most of the time there will not be. Here's the exception. The BR tag, it's meant for a line break. So if you're going along and you need an extra line break, then a BR tag will give you a line break. It does not have an ending tag, and there was a while when they would do less than BR space / greater than. That was their way of putting the break in the tag so you would have it guaranteed to be there. So you can come down here and look. You can see in all the browsers this is going to look the same. Down here, when you look at the structure of the page, you've got the header, you've got the title, and you go to the body. Now you've got one paragraph, the heading here, H1, and then 2 paragraphs. So then you can see there have been a lot of changes to HTML over time. Right now we're on 5.2, last change in 2017. So you can go to editors and it will start telling you, you can start HTML with just plain old Notepad, which is what we're going to do. We're going to go right here. We're going to paste what we had. Let's make sure we have a copy of the whole HTML. So let's actually go back here. Let's copy this. And once we copy that, we highlight it and then hit Control C. That will copy it. Control C is for copy. Now, you would think Control P would be for paste, but no. To the left of Control C is Control X, which will cut, in case you've typed something and you're going to cut and move it. And Control V to the right of C is going to paste. So you have both of those tools right there beside you that you can paste, you can copy, you can then cut and paste and move something from spot to spot. Okay, so now that we've copied this, and you can right click when it's highlighted if you want to do it a different way, and let's just paste it here in Notepad. So we have our first HTML inside of Notepad. We could have hand typed this, and as you learn, you might be able to remember and do that, but it's not important because you will learn there's other ways. So let's go to, I don't normally like people going to the C drive, going to the desktop and posting their stuff. So let's go create a folder. I'm going to create it in the C drive. And I'm actually going to call it HTML, since all of the videos I'm going to do about HTML are going to be in here. So we're going to save this file. Now, down here, if you change this to all files, then you can say, let's change it to index.html. And I'll explain why we're using index here in just a minute. So inside of there, we're going to create index.html. So we've got this file saved. So how do we browse to it? There's multiple ways, but I'm going to choose this way. Open up your internet, your file explorer. This is for Windows. For Mac, you have to go and open it up your way. Let's go here, go inside of HTML. And now, if I double click, because it's got the Chrome browser as a default, it will open the Chrome. If you need to open with something different, you can right click. You can go through all of these choices. And I believe there's even more choices. You can do open with and find more. And if you can't find it here, you can choose another app and go find more. Like here's Microsoft Edge, here's Firefox. You can install different browsers. And the reason to try having more than one browser is so that when you do build a web page, once you use it for work or something, you will want to be able to make sure it looks the same in all the different browsers, so that when your customers or users come to your web page, they see it the same way that you're seeing it. So let's go ahead and simply double click and open. And then it pops up. Is that what you want to open it with? Yes, that's what I want to open it with. So now we have our first heading right here, and we can actually go and change this right here. Notice at the very top it says page title, and I copied it so it rewrote that. So let's say my first web page. Save. So watch up here when I hit refresh. Now it says my first web page. So you've got the very, very, very basics of beginning to build a web page. I'm going to stop here, and then I'm going to create another HTML video on the next step. What should I do next? How should I learn the next thing? And one of the things you should really do is what I've already kind of told you. Go here. Don't worry about you've got to memorize all these. You do not need to memorize them. Some of this stuff will start to come second nature. Some of it you will have to look up depending on what you're doing. So click on these things. Look at what they are. Click on the next one and say, okay, what is this one's talking about? When it talks about attributes, it's like this is a link to another page. The attribute would be href. That means that's something you would fill out. Some of them are optional, some of them are required. That's what this will explain. And we will go through this. I don't want to go through every single detail of every single thing and bore you half to death. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to start building a web page, and as we need these, we're going to use them. Some of these I may never even touch because you will have to learn those later when you start actually coding. Once we get past a certain level, then we'll talk about maybe learning Cold Fusion or maybe learning PHP and starting to build a web page that way. Right now, your main goal is, how do I make a page look a certain way? So keep coding, and this is not programming, but this is something you need to know if you're going to do web programming, because your web programming generates this HTML for the browser. So keep on coding and constantly learning. You're always learning in this line of work. Thank you.